Welcome to the WordPress Photography Podcast, the podcast for photographers who want to learn how to get the most out of WordPress to grow their photography business. You don't need to be a geek to understand WordPress. Settle back and listen as we show you how. Now, here's your host, Scott Wyden-Kivowitz.
Welcome to episode 10. My name is Scott Wyden-Kivowitz, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rachel from Photoscribe. Hey, Rachel.
Hey, Scott. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
This is a special episode. This is episode number 10, and we're doing something a little different than we've done for really 2 through 9. Like episode 1, this is just going to be you and I. Yeah. And but instead of doing a behind the scenes like we did in episode 1, we're doing a Q&A. So through some back and forth, we decided to do a Q&A every 10 episodes. We're going to try to do it every 10 episodes. So episode 20 should be another Q&A. And hopefully, because we're doing it every 10 episodes, we can get 10 questions for every episode. That's the goal. So before we even move into WordPress photography-related news and then into the Q&A, let's first share where everybody can ask questions. Now, of course, you can comment on any show with questions.
Yep.
But if you want to submit specifically for the Q&A episode, go to imagely.com/podcast/Q. And there you'll be presented with a form where you can ask your question and include your name. If you, for whatever reason, don't want to include your name, just write a fake name like John or Jane. We don't even care. We just want your question. So, but you'll see we are going to share names, not last names, just first names with every question.
Yeah. And really, if you have a question, please feel free to submit because, you know, if one person has a question, I promise you there are 10 other people with that question. And it's really exciting for Scott and I to get to talk through this stuff and to see what photographers specifically want to deal with. And then we can sort of curate our guest on to help answer these questions in following episodes better. So it's sort of a win-win for everybody.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So the Q&As are very important for that. Be able to get at all those questions and answers as they come in, and we know that like what Rachel has said, the questions are popular, even if you don't think so. So anyway, let's dig in a little bit. There's only a tiny bit of news, even though it's actually a really big thing of news. It's not WordPress specific, but Instagram is now allowing multiple accounts inside of Instagram. So for me personally, I have had my personal Instagram, and then I've had the Imagely Instagram on my iPad. So my personal was on my iPhone, and the Imagely was on my iPad. And now I don't have to have my iPad. In fact, I mostly use the iPad for that because the iPhones are large enough. I don't even need the iPad anymore, really, for me personally. So now that I have, you know, Scott Wyden and Imagely, follow both of those on Instagram. You know, in one basically in one app, I don't need to log in and out. I just literally switch which user I'm using. That's a brilliant thing. So we'll link to that announcement in the show notes. That also contains how to activate that in your Instagram app. So.
And really as photographers, if you don't have a personal and business account, like right now, mine is all in one, but now is the time to make that switch. If you are so inclined, now you can do it from both. Was it a slow rollout or did they do it all at once?
It was slow. It's slow over all last week. So now everyone should have it. You know, it's millions of users, so it's possible that it's still being rolled out, but it should be in your account by now. So
it just means you can switch between 2 Instagrams in one app.
Yep.
Right?
And the cool part is, which is not really talked about much, well, I'll be the first to say it. For my personal account, I don't go, when I do the Facebook share, I go to my Facebook page, right?
Oh, okay.
I don't go to a Facebook personal profile for that. I actually use If This Then That, ifttt.com, in order to send all my Instagrams to my personal Facebook page. However, for when I actually click the Facebook button inside of Instagram, it's going to my Scott Wyden, you know, Facebook page, not personal profile. So with the multiple account, and same thing for Twitter, for the multiple account, you can set that up again for that other account. So
oh, that's huge.
yes. So when I share through the Imagely account, it's going to the Imagely Twitter and Facebook, not to the Scott Wyden Imagely and Facebook and Twitter. So that's a very important thing. Really, really great stuff that you can do now. Instagram, they should have done that years ago, but I'm glad that it's done now. Well,
I think they're trying to move it more towards a business supporting platform, and they weren't at first, you know.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the schedule, just to make sure that it's out there again. The schedule, we're aiming for every other Thursday to release the episode. I think we've talked about this in the past, and we've been on track. After episode 4, we started with the schedule.
Yep.
And so now we are actually scheduled. By the time we're done recording up at this episode 10, we should be scheduled through March, which I think is fantastic. So the downside to the schedule is we may record this. You know, we're recording this on February 16th, but it may not come out until March.
Right.
So there may be times where we deviate from the schedule, but for the most part, we're going to go every other Thursday. So you can expect that in your iTunes or wherever you're subscribing every other Thursday. And they get published in the mornings around 7 a.m. Eastern time. We will take off for the holidays. So, you know, we're not going to record episodes on the holidays. We probably won't release episodes on holidays either. So Christmas, Hanukkah, Thanksgiving, if those all fall on Thursdays.
Which Thanksgiving does.
Yeah. So you probably won't see a new episode during that week, you know, or however it goes.
I guess we should clarify for our U.S. listeners that Thanksgiving, because both Scott and I are based in the U.S.
Yes.
We've had some outside of the U.S. listeners, and we welcome you, but we do follow the U.S. schedules.
Yep. And there is a Canadian Thanksgiving. I don't know the exact day of that, but so anyway, we will be following the U.S. schedule. So little bit of cool highlights. So we've been in the new and noteworthy section of arts, visual arts, and technology categories in iTunes, which is fantastic. We discovered over the weekend, or just maybe Friday, we have been featured, I think number 181 or 180, I forgot what it was, of the top 200 podcasts in visual arts in iTunes. So we're on the top charts, which is a fantastic achievement. We're so happy. So
and thank you to our listeners. I mean, we really want to do this for you guys. So we like that you're liking the content, and anything we can do to make it better, let us know. We will do that.
Yes, definitely. And please continue leaving great reviews for us. We love seeing it. Of course, if you have any concerns about the podcast, send us an email or comment with it, and we'll address it. But so thank you to everybody who has been subscribing, listening, and leaving reviews. We really do appreciate it. So, okay, let's
jump in.
Q&A. So, why don't we go? I'll start with one, and then you go to the next.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to take a drink of water, so why don't you start with one, because
So Tom asked, I would like to know how to publish 360 photos taken with the Ricola Theta S. Is that right? Rico? How do you say that?
Rico Theta, or it might be Theta. I'm not sure if it's Theta or Theta, but
S camera to WordPress whilst keeping the photosphere functionality. So this one is out of my technical realm, but I'm really interested in the answer, Scott.
Yeah, so the Rico is a 360-degree camera. It sort of looks like a portable microphone type of thing. It's like this long rectangle. And you're supposed to put it on a tripod, but a lot of people just hold it up in the air like a Statue of Liberty torch. And it does a quick spin, or maybe it's fixed cameras. I've never put my hand on it, but I know people who have it. And it just, in one quick swoop, it does a 360-degree photograph, which you could then, embed in different places. So there are no gallery plugins that I know of that support the 360-degree virtual reality type pan things. But there are plugins that you can 360-degree players that you can embed. Basically, you embed the video of this 360-degree on a page or post or wherever. So we'll include a link to the WordPress directory searching for those plugins. That way you can quickly see them. I don't know, because I don't use it, I can't say which is best, which is, you know, the worst. So I'm going to say, look at the reviews, look at the stats, read the descriptions, look at live demos, screenshots, and figure out which is best for you.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
I mean, that's a general rule of thumb for any plugin, is to look at the reviews, look at the support. Obviously, the support you would think for this, because it's a new technology, would be up to date, but then see if it's continually being updated. I think that's key.
Yep.
Isn't Nikon having a camera with that functionality too?
Yeah, they're releasing a 360-degree camera as well. It's a little bit bigger than the Ricoh one. And I think they're trying to go after GoPro, because GoPro is going to be releasing one too, I believe.
Okay.
So
that's a great question. So as more cameras come out on the market, the functionality to plug it into WordPress will definitely grow.
Yeah,
so,
and in fact, there's a Panasonic luminary that I know that at Photo Plus Expo is actually asking me if we're going to add similar type functionality into Next Gen Gallery. So we plan on working with him in the future to explore those options. So yeah,
I think I've seen the Panasonic one at like CES in Las Vegas, on Instagram. But so that's interesting. Does it come out as a raw file, or does it come out in like a video format?
It's more of a video. I think there's stills that come with it, but I think it's more of a video that you embed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Who was that? Tom. Thank you, Tom, for that question.
Yes. So number 2, Amy asks, how much of a pain in the
Tiny
is it to change themes? So it can be a hassle to change themes depending on what your theme offers to you currently. So for example, we've talked about page builders in the past. So episode 7, we talked about page builders.
And 8, we talked about Blake too.
Yeah. So if you use a page builder, it can be a nightmare. Really, it can be a nightmare to change themes. It all depends on the page builder and the theme. So if you're using Divi, the Divi theme, and it has a page builder built in, you're using the Divi theme with page builder built in, and you change to 2016, the default WordPress theme that comes with WordPress now, that page builder will not transfer with you. You lose all that content that you created.
We don't lose it.
Well, it's in the database. It's not visible anymore.
Correct.
So if you use Divi Page Builder, luckily, Elegant Themes has created a plugin called Divi Page Builder, where you can then install the plugin version of Divi, and all of that comes back.
Right.
So that means you can use it on any theme. Now, it won't be styled correctly on every single theme. For the most part, styling is okay, but I personally notice things like bullets don't show when you're not using the Divi theme. So you need to go in and customize CSS to show bullets. So there's some downsides to this.
So that's really technical, but let's take it back to, I think it can be really scary to think, why would I want to change a theme? So the nice part about WordPress is that you can have all your data in the database, and you can, in theory, change themes or dresses like when you are ready for a new look or a new branding. What the Divi and all page builders work with is a thing called shortcodes. So shortcodes are either built into the theme and or the plugin. And so when you change that theme, not plugins as much, that's where you get a little bit of confusion as to where your content lives. Now, what I found with page builders like Divi built into the themes is that you can switch between the page builder view and the regular view. And if you don't see anything in your regular view, then you're going to have a problem when you switch over to a new theme.
Yeah, so page builders are really tricky. If you're switching from one that has a page builder built in, be prepared. You might have to make adjustments afterwards.
Yeah. And that's why backups are so important. So don't make any changes without a backup. Don't, make sure that you have something to revert back to if you need to, because that's what happens if things break. You then revert back, and then you're able to start sort of fresh and hopefully not make the same mistakes again, but
Yeah.
we've all done it more than once.
So let's talk a little bit about if you don't have a page builder.
Right.
Sometimes if you are switching themes, you might find your widgets go out of place. That's very common. It doesn't mean anybody did anything wrong. It's just each theme has a different widget code and name and location, and WordPress doesn't know this. So it doesn't know that what every theme uses. So it's not going to say, hey, if you are using, primary widget 1 here, and this theme it's called, primary widget A, WordPress doesn't know that it's the same spot but a different name.
Now, ProPhoto uses widgets heavily.
Yeah.
So
as does the Genesis theme. Yeah.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yep.
So even changing, I know from ProPhoto, from one ProPhoto theme to another, you might find like you have a widget in your footer that then ends up in your sidebar. So that's what we mean when we say widgets.
Exactly. So a lot of times if WordPress doesn't know what to do with that widget that you have, that where the sidebar that the widget goes into has changed, then it'll either drop it into a default, if there is a default, or it will actually drop it into a section called inactive widgets.
Right.
And then you can just drag it back to where you need it. So WordPress won't actually delete the widgets when you change themes. It'll just move it to a default area or into inactive widgets. And I use air quotes for anybody listening on that one. So so changing themes can be tricky. I will also preface not preface because we're already talking about this. Wrong use of wording. So in addition to backing up, I will also say work with the support team of whoever's theme you're using to help you make that transition smooth if you need that help. So that's very important.
And I would also say the support team of your host too. Like if you're on an Imagely or a GoDaddy managed hosting, there's a little bit more hand holding involved in those hosting. So you can say, I'm going from theme A to theme B on your host. I have my backup. Do you see any issues? I mean, a quick email like that may save you hours of time down the line. So.
Yep, that's for sure. Cool. You want to ask number 3?
All right. Carissa asks, can I install custom fonts instead of having to code them in? And I think this is a great question.
Oh, yeah. I get this question a lot, so I'm glad this was asked.
Yep. So without a doubt, if your theme does not support custom fonts, Typekit, or Google Fonts, then you can install the Use Any Font plugin, which will give you the ability to upload your own font files for use on your website. There are also plugins which add Typekit and Google Font support, and we have a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, we're linking to Use Any Font. What this literally means, right? It literally means you could take a font from your computer and upload it to your website and have your website use that font.
Yeah. Now, I caution photographers because there's a whole thing about typography and there's browsers like Internet Explorer that won't show it even if you have it. So just because you can use any font doesn't mean you want to use every font.
So my recommendation is typically go with a theme that supports Google Fonts out of the box.
Yeah.
Because Google Fonts are pretty much universally acceptable. They're very pretty. They're fast to load, so they won't slow down your website.
And they're supported by Google, that engine. So it's not coming from an upload from your computer, which then has to load and, and if you use Canva, the free version, not the work version, but all of the fonts in Canva that are free are the Google fonts. So you can really find some nice corresponding stuff for all these free resources and then use that on your website and within all of your branding.
And for anybody who has not heard of Typekit, it was acquired by Adobe a couple years ago, I believe. Yeah. So it's an Adobe product. So just like Google Font, it's coming from a reliable server.
Yep.
And again, they're quality fonts. It's just Typekit is not 100% free. So
correct. And I think there's a lot more options. And again, I know with myself with fonts, like I can go crazy looking for one font for one thing for hours and hours, and I get lost in this rabbit hole, and it's just you want to be really careful when doing that.
Yeah.
But it is better than, what was it? There were 5 fonts that you could use before the Google Typekit stuff came out. And that was it on your web browsers.
Yeah, you're pretty much stuck with like the Arial default.
Right, New York Times, Georgia.
Time New Roman. So a lot of the standards. So.
Yeah.
Cool. So next, Jane asked, I change themes and I lose all my content. What do I do? Now this sort of relates back to the 2 questions ago.
Yep.
So the first thing is to revert back to the original theme to make sure all the content comes back. After that, determine what content was lost and diagnose why. Was the content in a widget? Was it in a page builder? Contact your support person if you need help with determining all that or making the switch smoothly, as we have said.
Yep.
And of course, use your backup if you need to.
Yeah, so we should clarify that too. Yes. So you move to a new theme, you go to WordPress Appearance, select new theme. Are you sure you want to do it? Yes. Then you go to your website, everything's gone. Instead of immediately going to the backup, you want to go back and do those same steps, WordPress Appearance, and choose the theme that you had before.
Yep.
And see if that hopefully restores everything, because it should. There's no reason why it shouldn't. But
I mean, there's always a chance that someone coded a theme incorrectly and it deletes
right.
content if you switch. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but you never know. So
right. That's why having a backup is important, but it shouldn't be your first step if you change themes and things break.
Yep.
Your first step is just to go back and try and put it back in
Yeah. The next question goes right along with this. All yours.
How do I back up my content? So there are many services that can be used to back up sites and content. If you just want your content backed up to your own personal site or Dropbox or something, go to Tools, Export, and then export all or export posts and pages. If you want a full-size backup, then first see if your host provides one. If not, we recommend WordPress, which is part of the WordPress.com little world, or Backup Buddy. Both of those are paid backups. But they're really robust, and I think I know WordPress helps you restore them if it breaks. I think Backup Buddy does too.
We're getting some weird noises coming through for some reason. Rachel just talked about how to back up your content. That's very important to do. Also, your host might have a backup solution too, built in, which is important. I personally would recommend a host that does that. If your host does not,
and you want to make sure that there are 2 components to your backup. There's a database component, and then there's the WordPress component. Yep. And I don't know the specifics, but you want both of those because one and or the other will not.
Yeah. So the database is just what the WordPress software is reading from, right? So it's just the really the technical stuff. The rest of it is the actual files, the physical files that. The PHP files, the text files, the whatever files that come with WordPress, your plugins and themes, and your uploads, all the images you upload to either a gallery plugin or to the media library in a poster page or anything like that. So, okay. Lenzo asked, I hate my hosting company, but I heard it's impossible to move your site to a new host. I'm scared. How do I do it? So whatever host you decide on to move to can likely do site migrations for you. I know at Imagely, we do them 100% free. Some charge, some do not. There are some plugins to help with the process if you want to try it yourself, which, may not be the best if you're asking how to do a migration. You may not want to attempt it yourself. But so there are some plugins, for example, Backup Buddy, which does backups, also does migrations.
Yep.
So you can use Backup Buddy or WP Migrate Pro. It's specific for migrations only. But then, like I said, hosts like Imagely, SiteGround, GoDaddy, WP Engine, they all offer free site migrations. So if you're nervous about it, but you want to change hosts, go to a host that does free migrations, or even if they charge for migrations. That's Synthesis, made by the Rainmaker Digital. Their host, you have to pay to migrate, like to have them migrate you. I think it's a one-time $99 fee, so it's not terribly expensive. if you're really dissatisfied with your current host and you want to go to a new one and they are charging, if it's under $100 to do the migration, just look it up. It's a business expense.
Well, and we should, I mean, this is really where the difference between managed hostings and, you know, shared pay on your own. So we can even talk in the context of GoDaddy, because GoDaddy has
both.
GoDaddy, which is just you buy a URL and you have shared hosting and you pay, what, $3 a month to have everything in there.
Yeah.
And then they also have this WordPress managed hosting and you pay more than $3 a month, considerably more.
Yep.
And within that price structure, you are getting these other things. So if you're moving even just from GoDaddy to GoDaddy managed, you know, you want to make sure that you're getting the top level service that you're paying for.
Well, when it comes to GoDaddy itself, one fortunate thing is you're still on their servers. So they're going to do the migration for you just by you signing up for their managed. So they automate that whole process. So because it's on their server, they don't need to really do any heavy lifting. They can just click a button and it automates it.
So I agree with that in theory, but I've definitely had situations where GoDaddy is always about the upsell, and I think that's where a lot of people get confused too. It's not just GoDaddy, SiteGround. I mean, they all make their money by moving people through to the managed hosting.
Right.
And so I think the difference here is you, as a business, there is advantages to that upsell with the managed hosting, but the things that you want to avoid are you don't need more than one hosting plan. Even if you have more than one website, you want to make sure that you're on a plan that will have 2 or 5 sites so that you don't need to have 2 or 5 hosting plans.
Right. Yeah. Managed, the way managed hosting works is not unlimited everything like a shared host is. It's literally you're paying for X amount of sites, not domains, X amount of sites. So how many times do you install WordPress?
Right.
You're paying for specified bandwidth, specified storage, specified visits each month. So you have to make sure you know your numbers, and to find out, check with your current host.
Right.
Know your numbers before you go to a new plan, because you can always upgrade, of course, but you don't want to go to a plan that thinking, hey, I can do all my sites again, and you're only limited to 2. Right. Which is nothing wrong with it, because for the most part, most photographers only need 1 or 2, but you know, you need to know what you. For example, Aaron and Jeff Youngren have 9 WordPress sites, so
they have 9 separate installations. Now, and we should say you could have 3 URLs. Like you could have photography A photography, photographyByA.com. So you could own all of those URLs and have them redirect to one WordPress installation. So that's different. So what we hear a lot with the hosting conversation is I'm scared. So I stay with something that may be subpar, that may have a lot of downtime because I don't want to switch. And there are a lot of resources within the hosting plan that you're switching to. So don't be afraid to ask those questions and to rely on them to help you with that migration process.
Great. Number 7. It's all yours.
Number 7. I'm looking at this. Adam asked, what resources would you recommend for someone graduating from WordPress.com? This is a great question, and it's a question that I get asked a lot when people are starting on WordPress.com. Am I going to be able to switch later?
Yep.
The good news is, because WordPress.com is really built, you know, in conjunction with WordPress.org, the change is very simple. The WordPress software has an available plugin called WordPress Importer. Using it will import all of your page and post content and images to a new WordPress install. Outside of that, we recommend working with the host to handle migrations, again, what we just talked about, especially when migrating from a WordPress.com account, which has no available FTP access. So the one thing that will not come over with a WordPress.com account is your visual stuff, your theme, like how your theme looks, but all of your text and images, the stuff you uploaded, will come over rather easily.
Now, you can always reinstall the theme you're using on WordPress.com.
Aren't some of them only WordPress.com?
No, the ones that are on WordPress.com are available on WordPress. Either they're free on WordPress.org or they're premium that's sold direct to customers or through WordPress.com.
Okay.
So they can still get it if they want to.
I've never had a theme come over, because the reason most people come from WordPress.com is because they want the better themes that you can get on WordPress.org.
The WordPress importer won't import that too, but you can go out and get that theme and install it manually on your new site if you wanted to. I will say, Adam, now I spoke to Adam privately, and he's not only switching from WordPress.com, but also SmugMug. He's going from a WordPress.com, which he has somewhat control over, more control over than you would with a Weebly or a Wix, because a Weebly or Wix, they own the design and everything, and a Squarespace and so on.
Even Squarespace,
Yeah. But he's also going from a SmugMug, which the only thing he owns on SmugMug is the images. So he's coming to a WordPress.org hosted on Imagely. He's going to be using NextGen Pro to do his photo sales, which is great. So yeah, it's a lot of cool stuff from Adam.
Well, that's why we're here, because you can do all of these things that you're doing in individual, the SmugMugs, the Zenfolios for your album for your image proofing, and then the websites, and then the WordPress blogs. You can do that all in WordPress. So this is why some of these questions are so relevant, because it is really scary to think about all these moving parts coming into one place. But once it's in one place, I promise you, you will love it.
So the next one is actually, we have two questions from Amber. I'll ask the first one. Amber asked, what 3 to 5 things should I do every time I blog to boost or maintain my SEO? Now, it's a very sort of open-ended question. Now, she did ask for 3 to 5 things, so I'm gonna give 5 things, but know that it doesn't end at 5.
Right.
But we could go on forever. We can do a whole episode on this, and I think I do want to get Zach Perez to come talk about SEO, because I could talk about SEO, but I'd rather have somebody else also come on and talk about it. So we'll have Zach Perez probably come on and talk about it. Zach runs photographyspark.com.
Yes, and he has an ebook, I think, about SEO for photographers.
So 3 to 5 things that I should do every time I blog to boost or maintain my SEO. Number 1, the most reliable thing is to blog 1 time a week at the same day and time. So you want to have what Rachel loves to call dynamic content, content that is always moving and changing and evolving, and it's always something fresh on your website. But you want to be consistent, because search engines, they love that movement of content, but they also love the consistency of content. So they'll know if you're publishing every Tuesday at 8 a.m. that they're going to crawl your site every Tuesday at 8 a.m. looking for new content.
Right.
So
can I step in, because this is where PhotoScribe lives. 60% of the web is made up of Google Robot at any given time, believe it or not, which is a lot. So part of you is blogging for your clients. That's a big part of you. But another part of you is blogging for those robots. So by thinking like a robot in algorithms, and by blogging at the same day and the same time every week, your organic SEO goes through the roof. It really is the most reliable way, with all of these Google algorithm changes and SEO things that are constantly, that's a full-time job in and of itself. So just pick a day, pick a time, and just schedule your blogs out for that.
Yes. Next, 300 words per post. Now, this is not an easy task. Trust me, it's not an easy task.
No.
But if you need help, if you're a wedding photographer, a portrait photographer, child photographer, Story First Blogging can help.
Well, that's what Story First Blogging was created for, because the questions that we get asked, number 1 is, how do I hit 300 words and not say the same thing over and over? So storyfirstblogging.com has some story templates that can help you there, but 300 words minimum, that's you got to hit it every time.
Of course, you don't have to do 300 words with every article, but the articles you want to rank well for, really, you want 500 words, but Google still likes 300 words as a minimum. And
I think saying 500 words to photographers is scary. 300 words to photographers is scary. 300 words is 3 paragraphs, if you really think about it. If you have a beginning paragraph establishing who you're talking about, a middle paragraph talking about the shoot, and then an ending paragraph saying thank you. It's much easier to hit that with weddings than it is with portrait sessions, because there's a lot more to talk about if you're a wedding portrait photographer. But 300 words isn't as long as you think. 500 words is long for a photographer.
and WordPress, the post editor actually has, and page editor has a word count built in.
Yep.
It's not real time, so you actually have to hit save draft in order to see the count. But if you're actually drafting your content in WordPress, there's a word count in there. Otherwise, Google Drive can do it, Microsoft Word, whatever.
And the next three that Scott's going to go over, and this one, the 300 words, can all be found in that Yoast SEO plugin.
Yes.
So the nice thing about installing it is that everything that we talked about, or we're talking about, other than posting at the same day and the same time, it'll tell you if you're hitting that in the Yoast SEO plugin.
So number 3 is make sure you're using one focus keyword per blog post. Now, as Rachel said, Yoast SEO has this feature called focus keyword. In there, you're saying, okay, my keyword is New Jersey wedding photography. And then when you, it's now real time. It used to be you had to hit save draft. Now it's real time, so it analyzes your content in real time as you're writing it. But now, so you would start writing your content, and it'll see, are you optimizing the content for the keyword New Jersey wedding photography?
Right.
So use one focus keyword. There is a premium version of Yoast SEO which allows for 2 or multiple. I don't know what the limit is. Focus keywords. Most people don't see a point to that feature in the premium version because you only want one.
Right.
So worry about one. If you were considering Yoast SEO Premium for that one feature, consider it for other features, because I don't get it. But I love Yoast SEO, so nothing against Yoast.
Yoast has done a lot of articles about why just one.
Yeah.
So they've gotten a lot of feedback about, I want more than one, so that must be why they added it in the premium. But really, you only need one.
It could be that they're just trying to test, to do some testing content of which would rank better. That could be it. I don't know. Anyway, so next, number 4, make sure you're including the keyword in your post title.
And that's hard.
It is very hard to do that and not sound like a robot, but it's very important. In fact, it might be one of the most important things for the blog post is that the keyword is in the title.
And we should say that the keyword, your focus keyword, needs to be different every time.
Yes. Yep.
So that's why it's difficult, because New Jersey wedding photographer, you can't say that for all 50 blog posts every time. You can only say it once. So you have to find the different ways to say it, and that's why not only do you have to find the keyword, then you have to find a way to naturally put it into your post title. Yep.
And a little sub answer to go with that is you want that keyword towards the beginning of the post title.
Yes.
So your keyword should be, New Jersey wedding photography, then the rest of the post title.
Right.
So anyway.
Or it can be the couple's name, which, Dana and Jerry / New Jersey wedding, because that's not, like, you don't want a super long thing before the keyword. Yes, you ultimately want it up front, but you do have to think that you are talking to people.
Yep.
So, some of these things, none of this is hard and fast rules.
Yeah.
These are suggestions that will help.
Yeah. So with anything in SEO, you want to make sure that, yes, you're optimizing as best as you can for the robots.
Right.
But you still want to be, you're still talking to humans. So you want to optimize for humans more than robots. So there's that
Google
fine
is
line.
and Google is getting better at trying to discern content that is useful versus content that is just like clickbaity.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
and they're using all the content on your site to determine how certain page or post should rank. So the last one, number 5, make sure you're including an image whose file name and alt text contain that keyword.
Yes.
So instead of dsc1234.jpg, you want to say New Jersey -photography or wedding -photography.com .jpg.
And your photography business name. And that's important because that's where Google image searches pull from. And the nice thing about WordPress is if you rename them before you upload them, they will automatically pull those file names into the alt text. You can manually go in and change it to be more without the dashes because the alt text doesn't need that, but the file name needs to be one continuous stream of text.
But if you do leave the alt, the hyphens in the alt text, it's not the end of the world.
No.
Google still knows that.
Exactly.
It's up to file names need that hyphen or an underscore, you know, that
Right.
like underscore.
It just needs no spaces.
Yeah. No spaces. Alt text, however, can read like a sentence. It doesn't make a difference. Just has to have the keyword in it.
So do you know the background of alt text, that those were used for text readers for people who had disabilities, and they've become this SEO repository.
Yep.
But, you know, there are still some limitations in some of it, but it's a good place to add those extra keywords if you need it.
Yep. So speaking of which, this is just a side note, it's a good tip. If you are a photographer who photographs people with sight disabilities,
yes.
So anybody who's blind or just poor vision, anybody who might use a screen reader, your alt text are extremely important.
Yes.
So you want those to read like, you know, really describing what the image is about.
Right.
Okay. So you want to go for Amber's second question, number 9.
So Amber also asks, what is the best way to ensure people who mention me in the web also include a backlink to my site? So I'm going to let you answer this because I'm not really sure what she's asking here.
Yeah. So basically she's saying for people who mention her, so no, I just checked out Amber's article or Amber's photo, and it's, you know, it's pretty cool. You know, there's no guarantee that someone is going to
link to it,
link to that photo. So there's no way to guarantee it. So I'm sorry to break it to you, Amber. There's no way to guarantee somebody links back to you when they mention you on their site or anywhere.
Right.
However, there are multiple services that add a URL, a trackable URL at the end of anything that's been copied or pasted. And pasted. So there's a company called Tint, T-Y-N-T, that has a tool called Copy and Paste. And what it does is literally places a link to wherever the person copied and pasted content from, adds a little tracking hash at the end of the URL, and includes it when they paste it. Now, yes, somebody can remove that, but again, there's no guarantee. So,
right. Well, I mean, because you're asking somebody on their WordPress blog who's talking about you to make sure that they have a link. And so this Tint, T-Y-N-T, will then, can you walk me through it a little bit? It will, if they copied from your website, then that link will automatically go in?
Yeah, so and they paste it somewhere else, that link will automatically stay with it. If you want to see a good example, digitalphotographyschool.com, last I checked, they use it.
Okay.
So you can copy content from digitalphotographyschool.com. That's with hyphens, digital-photography-school.com. And you can copy text, paste it somewhere else, and it should add the Tint style URL thing in the pasted.
It's a really interesting question because maybe it's more about education. If somebody is using, a client or an industry colleague is using, you know, your stuff, make sure you ask them to include a link. Or follow up with them. And, you know, it's more about the education than the technical back end stuff.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. So the last question, and this is I think it's going to be a big one. Howard asked, I use Headway themes, but I want you to recommend a simple WordPress theme instead. No issues with Headway, but I want something simpler. I only use a site for client galleries. I want to start blogging. I need a starter theme that I can purchase, start using right away, and build on that is meant for photographers.
We hear this a lot.
Yes, we do. Headway themes, for anybody who doesn't know, Headway themes is a page builder style drag and drop theme, just like a Divi or a Beaver builder or any of those.
But it doesn't even matter where they're coming from. It's just where they're going, you know?
Yeah. So this is a little bit of shameless self-promotion. I think I have to include this because my recommendation is always going to be a Genesis child theme. Right. I personally prefer simpler over so much going on with a theme. Genesis is one of the best frameworks out there. They're super simple because they're designed for speed, SEO, security, and code quality, 4 important factors. Now, the shameless self-promotion part of this is going to be mentioning Imagely. I don't like doing this often, but by the time this episode airs, we're going to have our themes out there, and I want people to know. Imagely is coming out with a variety of photography style Genesis themes.
Right.
Now, these are child themes, meaning you can buy the Imagely themes, and you then have to go and buy Genesis. 2 separate themes you have to buy. The Imagely theme basically is a separate theme that sits on top of Genesis, adding our styling and functions on top of the Genesis framework. So you can be on the lookout for those. Again, by the time this airs, they should be out. And that'll be at demos.imagely.com. I'll make sure that's linked in the show notes. You can also see I'm using a theme called Imagely Ansel on my website, scottwyden.com. Currently in beta at the time that we're recording this, but it should be done by the time this airs. So that's
and I'm switching over too. I'm so excited. Well, let's back that up, because I think there's the Imagely portion, but there's also the Genesis framework portion. So Genesis is actually really well known and respected within the WordPress community. So outside of the world of photography, Genesis is the go-to for
major
WordPress
corporations
people.
too.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, here's a fun fact. Fun fact number 1, Genesis theme, the Genesis framework, the actual Genesis theme is being used on more WordPress websites than the default WordPress themes.
Oh, that is interesting. Whenever I go to like WordCamps and I hang out with WordPress dev people, they always talk about Genesis themes. Now translating that into the photography space has taken a really long time.
Yes.
So,
yeah, because Genesis, it's not the easiest theme to work with as far as activate it and you're done. You know, it requires looking through documentation. It requires a little bit of setup, because Genesis themes, the home pages typically rely on widgets for the layout. And so documentation always walks you through what widget to use where and why. However, we're coming up with a solution where there's a widget import-export plugin that we're going to supply default widgets in a file. And then in the documentation of how to set up the theme, we'll say install this plugin, download this widget file, import this widget, the widget settings, and it'll automatically set up your homepage for you that you can then tweak it to your liking. Yeah, so the reason why Genesis hasn't been a standard in the photography space is because no one's made it non-technical yet.
Right. So there is that difficult level of, developers love it, but how do ordinary people get through and like manipulate it? So that's what Imagely has done. Imagely has taken the Photocraty look, because Photocraty was not on the Genesis themes.
Right. Yeah. So Photocraty was its own framework. We took, I think, 2 or 3 of the Photocraty designs, the most popular ones. We converted them into Genesis child themes under the Imagely brand. But then we have a bunch of fresh ones that I'm just so excited for, because they're beautiful. Our CEO Eric has been working long hours working on these themes. He's taken on this project, and he's already, I think 11 of them are done, and he hopes to have 15 done by WPPI, but it's only 2 weeks away. I'm recording this, so I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's still exciting.
And I think that because we would get this question and we would say Genesis themes, and photographers would come back and say, okay, well, what's the best Genesis theme for photographers? And that answer wasn't there before. There is, obviously many other options and themes, but the WordPress industry standard is Genesis themes. Now with Imagely, we're able to offer viable options to photographers.
Exactly.
But again, there's thousands and thousands of themes.
I mean, so going away from the Genesis and Imagely, if you want simple, you could look at really any theme that's in the WordPress directory. Any free theme is going to be simple, because the WordPress theme review team doesn't allow themes with all these functions and drag and drops and all this stuff. They require simple. That's it. So
and we should make the differentiate between, when you talk about WordPress repository, WordPress.org has a certain number of themes that live within it. Then there are other things you can buy, and that's where you start getting dicey. That's the theme forest of the world, and that's where you need to make sure that the support is happening, and that's where you need to make sure that the themes aren't buggy and interacting with other things. So again, this is where the big wide world of WordPress can get really scary for photographers who just need a easy website that works well.
Yep.
And so that's why the Genesis theme will do that. It's just technical.
Yep. But we're making it easy, so that's good.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, there's 10 questions.
Hopefully we gave everybody the answers they were hoping for. Again, if you if you have questions for the future, you can for episode 20 now at this point. That's crazy to think about. If you have questions for the next Q&A episode, go to imagely.com/podcast/Q. But that's it for today.
But thank you again to our listeners. I mean, when Scott and I started this, I don't think we really appreciated how people would listen and ask questions, and the feedback that we've gotten has been so positive. And that's because of you guys who are listening now. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So to listen to or to see the show notes from today's episode, go to imagely.com/podcast/10.
10.
Thanks, Rachel, for being an awesome co-host.
Thank you, Scott, for everything that you do.
And see you next time.
Bye.
You've been listening to the WordPress Photography Podcast. To listen to other episodes and to subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and more, please visit imagely.com/podcast.